Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Tank and Maddie's CNA Chronicles. I'm Maddie.
I'm Tank.
And we are here to talk about what it's like to be a CNA. Please, if you get the opportunity, to follow us on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, working on a website. We'll get that up and running by this weekend. Don't forget to subscribe and follow our newsletter. All right, what are we going to talk about today?
Today is turning your patients and bed sores.
Yeah, I've seen some ugly ones over the years.
My pet peeve is when you go into a room and they have wrinkles on their back. They are sliding and all this. I always try to make sure my sheets are straight, my legs are up a little bit, and the head's up at least 90 degrees because it prevents them from sliding and making wrinkles.
Right, put them in the dip. A lot of people don't realize that the draw sheet underneath or the chucks, if it's wrinkled, can cause a bed sore.
Exactly, because the moisture caps into the creases of the skin, and it can cause breakage because of the moisture.
Yeah.
And then also check your patients every 2 hours, especially your heavy wetters. I recommend every hour because me being a diabetic, I pee a lot. So
thanks for sharing.
Well, hey, there's diabetics out there like that. So no. I just wanted to let you know. But
like I didn't already know.
Right, but so you got those diabetics, and some of your patients are diabetics, and they're going to be peeing, but they can't get to the toilet. So always check. Being in Vegas, for instance, you have that heat, and sometimes your air conditioners aren't working properly, or the windows putting in a lot of heat. They get the moisture, and it causes bed sores, and that's where it causes issues. The other pet peeve I have is air mattresses.
All right, hold on. Before we move past the bed sore thing, I just want to say, if you have patients who think they're continent and you go in, and you want to change them, and you say, hey, Mary, I'm here to get you cleaned up. And Mary says, oh, no, I'm fine. You don't have to worry about me. I'll let you know. I like to say, oh, Mary, but I'm going to be really busy. Do you mind if I just check and make sure?
Yep.
And 9 times out of 10, Mary's usually wet.
Yep.
And so I say, oh, Mary, you're wet. Let's just get you cleaned up really quick. A lot of times people, especially women, I find, that are incontinent are either too proud or don't know.
Yep.
And if they're wet and they tell you, oh, no, come back later, and you wait another 2 hours, that's 4 hours that Mary's been laying in urine.
Exactly, and that's an awesome breakage right there itself.
Right. All right, I'm sorry, go ahead.
But the other thing of my pet peeves is when you have an air mattress. Don't put a fitted sheet on the air mattress. Because when you put, and I'm going to tell all CNAs this, and nurses, and everybody else that's listening, when you put a fitted sheet on an air mattress, it prevents the job what it needs to do. And when I mean this, and also when they tie the sheet. I've gone through many rooms before with air mattresses in many years in the past, and they just tie it because they're like, oh, the sheet moves. Well, it's okay to move it. Well, if you go into the room every 2 hours, straighten the sheet out, you're doing your job. The one other thing I have a pet peeve is night crew, not all night crew, but most night crews don't do anything at night, and they're all wrinkled up when in the morning.
Okay, but before we move on to night crew, the sheet thing. So first, I got to tell you that when I first started here, and I don't know, it was a brain fart. I've kept up my CNA license, but I haven't always, worked steadily as a CNA. So it had been a few years since I had worked steadily as a CNA. I was a medication aide in an assisted living facility. So I wasn't doing a lot of hands-on care. So I was working, training with another CNA, and we were getting somebody cleaned up. And she said, can you go grab me a sheet? And I was like, sure. So I run, to the supply room, and I come back with 2 sheets, a top sheet and a bottom sheet. And I hand it to her, and she's like, we don't put fitted sheets on these beds. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, I was trying to put the sheet on the bed. And she's like, no, we don't put fitted sheets on these beds. And I looked and I realized that it was an air mattress. And I was like, okay, no need to, get all cocky about it. I get that. And so that was my mistake. But when you have somebody on an air mattress and you put a draw sheet under them, if you make sure that your draw sheet and your chucks is straight and there's no wrinkles in that, then you don't need to worry as much about the sheet under there.
Exactly.
And if that sheet moves around, that's okay, as long as you keep the ones closest to their skin with no wrinkles.
And that's the other thing too, that about changing and rotating and all that too, is if you don't change your patients every 2 hours that are the heavy wetters and stuff, you will get UTIs. And when you get UTIs, you're going to have a patient on your hands that's going to be highly confused and really agitated. Giving you guys heads up now.
Yep.
So if you do your job properly, you're not going to have agitated patients.
Well, and not just UTIs. If you don't take care of somebody every 2 hours, you could just have agitated patients, period.
Yeah.
You know, why want you in here 2 hours ago?
That's why I said rule of thumb before you leave. Even if they want a glass of water, rule of thumb. Is there anything else I could do for you before I leave? Because with my run, a lot of my other CNAs are like, why is your run so easy? My run's not easy. I just make sure my patients are happy and content.
Right.
Because if your patients are happy and content, your nurse is happy and content, which means I get to sit back and relax a little bit, get my charting done that needs to get done, help my other CNAs out, another thing we're going to talk about later. But I'm always one to helping my CNAs out to help their job a little bit easier too, because it is rough.
Yep.
Especially when you have anywhere from 12 to 15 patients.
Since we're talking about pet peeves, that's my pet peeve. Tell me everything you need before I leave the room. Just the other day, I had a lady, oh, can you go get me, I don't remember, a pillowcase? Sure. Go get the pillowcase, bring back to her. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. Can I have some ice water? Sure. Got some ice water and came back. Oh, I'd really like a snack. And I told her, I said, ma'am, can you, tell me everything that you're going to want in the first trip so that I'm not going back and forth. And I told her, it's easier for both of us. You have everything you need, and I have, taken care of all your needs. And then that way, you don't have to get on the call light unless something happens.
That leads to something else about the call light.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the whole call light thing.
Because you have patients out there that are, I call trigger buttons, that they just keep their thumb on the button all the time.
Right.
I will tell patients, if they keep doing it, and I wait for a good 2 hours, if they keep doing that, I go in and say, by federal law, I do not have to answer your light every 5 minutes. I can wait up to 2 hours if need be, because I do have other patients I have to attend to.
Right.
When those ones hit, I talk nice to them, though, because, you can be rude to them and then, you got issues with the big wigs and you got issues with family and all this. But if you talk to them nice and say, hey, I do have other patients I have to attend to. I want to take care of all your needs as much as I can. And like you said, tell me what you need all at once so I can get it all done so that we're both happy and content, so that I can still continue doing what I have to do for my other patients, and you're happy and content until I can come back to you again. Sometimes those patients will listen, and then some patients are like, nope, I don't care what you say.
Right. And I think that's an important point, that we are required by law to check on them every 2 hours.
Yep.
Do we stick to that? No, of course not. We go in and check on our patients all day throughout the day.
Especially if they have roommates, because you don't know if it's the roommate or not.
Right. But when it becomes just a game of tag, then that makes me less inclined to want to go in there. The perfect illustration of this point is a patient that everybody says is confused, but she's constantly on her light. I personally don't think she's confused. And, she knows my name.
Yep.
She knows your full name. She knows as soon as she sees you who you are. Yep. She knows who I am. If I walk by, she'll call me from her room.
Yep.
And then if we go in to check on her and she's doing whatever acrobatics that she's doing in the bed.
I know what patient you're talking about.
And we turn off the light and we get her water and we get her straightened out and we get her taken care of. And there's no other needs that need to be met at that moment. As soon as we walk out the door, her light is back on.
Yep.
And I believe it's because she's lonesome. And she wants people in there with her.
And see, when I have my downtime, that's what I like to do. I do sit down with my patients and get to know them more one-on-one, because then you learn their likes and dislikes to have a better relationship with your patient.
Right.
Like I said, you're there as family, so you got to learn. We have one particular patient that I know just about every likes and dislikes that he likes. But he's been here for a while, our facility. And everybody said in the beginning when he got here, he was a pain in the ass. But now he's a lovable guy because he knows everybody and everybody knows him.
Right. Absolutely.
Management doesn't like it when you do this, but sometimes we do what we have to do. I use some of my own money to buy certain things for them, like body wash, lotion, shampoo, because sometimes their body wash that they get here at the facility is too rough
It's
on their
crap.
skin, or it makes their skin dry. So I try to help out. If I have that little extra cash to do it, my wife's fine with it. I consider it like a donation to help out.
Dude, there's not a CNA in the world that doesn't do that.
Exactly.
And there's
But the big wigs, the management doesn't like that.
No, they don't. And I happened to come across a doctor on TikTok. I'd give him a shout out, but I honestly don't remember his name. I'll look it up so that I know the next time. But he was talking about that. How shocked he was to learn that CNAs buy stuff for patients. He was talking about all the soap, shampoo, bras, underwear, socks,
Clothes.
Deodorant. And he said something, I don't want to quote him because I don't remember exactly what he said, but he said something along the lines of, they are the lowest paid members in healthcare who are spending the most money on patients.
Yeah.
And he's like, this isn't right. They shouldn't have to do that. Patients should have what they need.
Yeah, but they get the limited what they can get. That's the only downfall.
Well, because facilities buy the cheapest of whatever they can get. If they can get a case of no-name body wash for 75 cents a bottle, or a case of
Dove.
Dove body wash for $2.50 a bottle, they're obviously going to get the cheaper one.
Yeah.
Because they have to give that to 120 patients. So They're going to buy what's cheaper. I understand the business model. I don't like it.
Right.
But I understand
Exactly, because you got to pay your CNAs and your staff and all this and all that. By the end of the time, you got to have a budget for yourself, too.
Right.
What's the point of having a business?
Right. And I could get into a whole corporate conversation that I don't want to get into. It's really important, like we were talking about the acrobatic lady, to make sure those people know that you're there.
Yep.
I can't spend an hour in there with her because I have 9 other patients to take care of.
Exactly.
But I try to give her, some time. I try to sit in there with her so she knows she's not alone.
Exactly.
Every one of my patients, I take the time to chat with them. I learn about them. I know where they're from. If they have a southern accent, I find out where they're from, what they do, how they got here. One lady a couple days ago said, I really need to get a shower. When is my shower day? And I said, I don't know. I'll look. Not that there needs to be a reason for a shower, but I said, is there any particular reason you're in a hurry to get a shower? And she said, I fell and broke my hip on the way to the shower. And she said, so my daughter called the paramedics. They took me to the hospital, and I never got to get my shower.
Oh, boy.
I put her in the shower that day.
Right.
Because, that was something that was important to her, and I had the time to do it.
Yep.
So, and I just want to say, I'm losing my voice as we talk. I've had a really bad case of laryngitis for the last month. So I'm trying not to just be squeaky. Anyway, it's important that you do those things for them, even in rehab, because
it helps them heal.
Absolutely. It absolutely, when they say, will you hold my hand and pray?
Do it.
I'm not religious.
I'm not either.
There isn't a religion I believe in. But if this 90-year-old lady asks me to hold her hand and pray, I do it.
It makes them heal. My thing is Patch Adams, for instance, greatest doctor in the world.
Absolutely.
Made everybody laugh, and people were healing better.
Right.
That's the way you have to think about it. You give whatever helps them is going to help them heal better because they feel it inside them. So if you're giving your hand to a 90-year-old lady that wants to pray, that's making her feel better, which makes her body feel better, which makes her heal faster.
Well, and it doesn't just make her feel better in that moment. It makes her feel better about the care that she's getting.
Exactly, because it shows that you have that capacity of heartness that makes them feel, okay, I feel more comfortable.
Right.
That's why I always make my patients laugh and my staff laugh when I work with them. Because
let's mention that when you make staff laugh, it's at my expense.
At everybody's expense.
It's always a joke about me.
Not always.
Most of the time.
Sometimes you're not around.
Then you're talking behind my back.
No, I make everybody laugh because, like, some of my patients says, I don't want to be here. And I says, well, some of my staff don't like being here neither because they're tired. They got things going on at home that they don't know how to control and separate from work life and home life.
Right.
So I try to make it easier, being Patch Adams, laughter guy, making it more easier. Why do you think I dance around a lot, and goof around and make funny comments and jokes? Is because it doesn't just heal the patient, but also the staff, to make the staff feel more lighthearted so that they can take care of the patients a lot easier also.
Right.
So in a way, you got to do that for your other CNAs and staff too. And if everybody did that in all the facilities, less burnouts, less stress, and more fun, and a lot of people are healing faster.
Right. And all of that, I don't know, all of that is important. It's not just in the moment, it's long term.
Exactly.
None of us want to be here. I don't want to come to work.
I'd rather be at home on a beach.
I'd rather be at home in front of my PlayStation with my dog kicking me in the back. But, we have to be. So let's make the best of it. They don't want to be here.
No,
so my goal is to make it the best for them as possible. I used to have, I need to fix it, my Netflix account on the TV.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? I'm like, what's the big deal?
A lot of patients enjoy it because they like going to the dining room watching TV.
And watching TV.
And hell, we do the same thing. We watch it when we're passing out meals, while we're sitting waiting while someone's doing the drinks.
Yep.
Gives us something to watch.
Yep. And I talked about bringing, because I have my old PS4, and I talked about bringing my PlayStation up here, and plugging it into the TV in the dining room so that people could play.
That would bring more patients out if they played, but we got a lot older generation, so...
Well, what I think I'm going to do, because my boyfriend bought me one of those game sticks, like on TikTok, with the controllers, and with the PlayStation, you have to, it'd be complicated. Plug it in the morning, unplug it at night. Plug it in the morning, unplug it at night. But with the game stick, I can just leave that plugged in and leave the controllers at the nurse's station.
Yeah.
And
they can play Mario.
Yep. There's games on there that I didn't even recognize. Okay, so anyway, there's a lot of ins and outs to being a CNA.
Very much so.
There's a lot more than just, wiping somebody's ass. Which, as we get further into more episodes, maybe some of the episodes will be like tutorials and stuff like that on how to do certain things. Because I know from when I started to now, my technique has evolved.
Mine too, definitely. I've learned a lot from experienced CNAs that's had years before me. And, for instance, changing a bed with a patient in the bed. And a tip is rolling the sheets all together, put it all together and roll it up.
Right.
So you're not rolling the patient so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Because especially, if you have somebody that has a hip issue or a shoulder issue.
Or vertigo.
Yeah. You don't want to keep them on their side longer than you need to. Exactly. A lot of times when I have somebody that's a heavy wetter or I know is going to be a little complicated, that's why I come get you. Yep. Even though I could easily do it myself, if we're there together, we can get it done quicker so they're not, and a lot of times I have you just stand on the side so that the patient feels comfortable and knowing that you're there, they're not going to roll off the bed.
Exactly.
And, I get all the work done and they can just be there with you and know that, they're safe.
Exactly. That's a plus side to having hence why I said get along with your coworkers.
Right.
It does make it a lot easier, especially with the vent patients when you really do need two people, because when you only have one person working 15 patients to 20 patients on vents, your body's taking a huge toll. It takes forever, because when I was doing vents when I first got here, I was training with somebody, and my person I was training with was like, wow, we're done fast.
Right.
It's because one, I'm an old school CNA, so I know a lot of tricks. But two, I was the extra hands to help hold while they were cleaning, and their bodies weren't hurting as much because there was two on.
And that's, another episode. We have a girl here that works our vent unit that I was talking to earlier today. At some point, we'll have her in as a guest because I think vent patients are a whole different ballgame.
It is a huge ballgame.
It's completely different when you're taking care of a vent patient as opposed to a regular patient.
Or even a long-term patient.
Right. And I really want to hear her perspective on what it's like to take care of those patients. So I did already talk to her.
Perfect.
I talked to a couple of our nurse supervisors,
Right.
and we'll get them in here to do an episode and hear from them their point of view on the CNAs, what they feel the CNAs lack of a better way to put it,
That's true.
where they could help and where the CNAs could help them, and just get their perspective on it.
Exactly.
And, I have been talking to a lot of people. I'd also like to, at some point, talk to maybe a patient. I don't know if we can. I have to find out about that.
A lot of legal terms and stuff with that.
Well, we'll find out. But
the other thing is that I'd like to get some family members with CNAs that have families, so they can explain what they go through with a CNA partner or brother, son, whatever, so they can get an aspect of what the outside life is for a healthcare provider and their family, what the family goes through too.
Well, okay, wait. Do you mean like a family who has a CNA in the family? Is that what you mean?
Like, for instance, my spouse or my one of my sons or one of your sons.
Okay, because I'd like to get a family member from a patient.
That'd be fit. I got a perfect patient family member to do that too.
Okay, because then that gives us another perspective of, what the family members see, what is a realistic expectation and what is an unrealistic expectation.
Exactly, like what they expected before she came in and what they expect or what they see on a daily basis when they do come in.
Right. Yeah, I think those are all good ideas. All right, so we're going to wrap it up here. Don't forget to check us out on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Going to set up the website hopefully by the end of the week. Start our newsletter. You got to subscribe. Were you going to say something? Oh, okay.
That's the second. Besides, just remember, make sure you rotate your patients every 2 hours.
Yeah. We'll talk about that on another episode. And this is Tank and Maddie CNA Chronicles. I'm Maddie.
I'm Tank.
Thanks for hanging out with us.